Okay, good morning, everyone, and a warm welcome to today's session 3, which is part of the Health and Wellness Formation Series 2021. I'd like to start off by giving a brief introduction to the speaker for today, Father Philip Chua. Father Philip Chua is the ecclesiastical assistant of the Archdiocesan Mental Health Ministry. He's a registered and licensed counselor under Lembaga Counsellor Malaysia. He's a certified counseling supervisor under Lembaga Counsellor Malaysia, as well as an EMDR2 psychotherapist, as well as a certified behavioral consultant. He has a master's in counseling from Help University and has a licentiate of sacred theology. So Father Philip Chua has indeed a very impressive biodata, and we are very privileged to have him for the talk today entitled Grief and Loss During the COVID-19 Pandemic. So over to you, Father.
Thank you, Christella. Good morning to our team of South KL District that are present here in the background, and also all our viewers in the Holy Family Church YouTube. So welcome to this talk this morning. And my dear friends, this talk, grief and loss during the COVID-19 pandemic, is quite a very heavy thought. So I want to share this one because it is very relevant to us, especially in this era of pandemic. Yeah. So I understand that each one of us experiences loss and grief in our lifetime. No? And grief resulting from the loss of loved ones is intensely emotional and has been made worse by the COVID-19 pandemic. Which also has halted normal funerals and rituals. And also we know that family and friends are prevented from in-person contact with a loved one when they pass on, and also cannot mourn someone's death in person with families and friends during this COVID-19 pandemic. And avoiding the pain of loss by refusing to work through the grief can bring out unwanted psychological problems, such as psychosomatic illnesses. My dear friends, this 1.5 hour talk will explain the grief experience and also offer some tips on supporting the bereaved. Yeah. So I'd like to inform that this webinar is not intended to be a substitution for any professional grief counseling or medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. So please seek the advice of your counselors, psychotherapists, physician, and other qualified mental health professional with any questions you may have regarding a prolonged grief or medical condition. Yeah. Okay. So grief and loss during this COVID-19 outbreak, and the loss it brings can shatter your sense of safety. So we know that during the MCO, when our friends and relatives pass on, then most of us, we have to stay at home to stop the spread of COVID-19. And some of us are likely to experience loss related to work, finances, social interactions, and family obligations, among others. You also may experience the death of someone that you know, maybe from your workplace, your organization, your church, your BEC. So all these losses can be very significant and traumatic. The realities of physical distancing and isolation policy like MCO, RMCO, mean you may not be able to experience and cope with grief in ways you previously had. And so, such as being with the loved ones during the last day, physically spending time with friends and family, visit the hospital, visiting the place of worship, the church, or attending a funeral in person. And so these changes can be traumatic and may impact your grieving process. And so recovery will take time and can be difficult. And I hope this webinar explain what to expect and how to cope with these losses and where to go for help. Yeah. Okay. So I want to just share with you a bit of the definitions. No. So what is grief? So grief is the emotion response to one's loss. So as human beings, whenever our attachments are threatened, harmed, or severed, we naturally grieve. And grief is everything we think and feel inside of us when this happens. We experience shock and disbelief. We worry, which is a form of fear. We become sad and possibly lonely. We get angry, we feel guilty or regretful. The sum total of all these and any other thoughts and feelings we are experiencing as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic is our grief as well. No? And bereavement is an event, it's the experience of losing a loved one. The bereaved are commonly defined as close friends or family members, but loved ones can be any important person in one's life. For children, for some of us, it might be our pet. No? The loss of close relationship often affect people more strongly and in different ways than they expect. So the importance of loved ones in our lives is one of the reasons that their death can have such a significant impact. Yeah. And what is mourning? Mourning denotes the actions and manner of expressing our grief, which often reflect the mourning practices of one's culture. So mourning is the process of feeling and expressing grief following the death of a loved one, or the period during which this occurs. So it typically involves apathy and dejection, loss of interest in the outside world, and diminution in activity and initiative. And so, my dear friends, these reactions are similar to depression, but are less persistent and are not considered pathological. Other mourning reactions may include anger, maybe towards the deceased for dying, or a sense of relief, example, for the deceased is no longer suffering, or anxiety about repercussions of losing someone upon whom the bereaved may have depended, or any physical sign like fatigue, loss, or apathy. Yeah? So what is the difference between grief and mourning? Grief is the feeling of loss and pain following the death of a loved one. However, mourning is the outward expression of that grief. And my dear friends, we know that mourning is essential for our healing, no? In this process. Yeah. Now I'm going to talk about the grieving in the time of pandemic like this COVID-19 pandemic. No? So it will lead to delayed grieving process. Why? Because there is a big farewell in a hurry, or sometimes not even have the time to say goodbye to our loved ones. The moment of saying goodbye is actually a crucial part of the process of mourning. Inability to perform a funeral ritual may make the grieving process more complex. We know that during the COVID-19 lockdown, yeah, a lot of restriction of physical and social distancing, no? Which constituting an added factor of stress, anger, and anguish for family members. And also bring a new type of sadness, not only individual, but also communal, and confront a community with its fears and uncertainties. We know that there's no certainty that we can see now during the COVID-19 pandemic, where there's a lot of precision of going to visit our loved ones in the hospital, in the ICU, etc. And also guilt and anger that often accompany losses may also come out, for example, in contexts where there are suspicions about who infected the disease. And the prohibition on having an open coffin together with other restrictions may also lead to pathological grief. And this tendency to feel isolated that normally comes with the states of grieving may be confused with the isolation imposed by the regulation of the government, which can aggravate sensations of grief and loneliness. Yeah. So when we talk about grief, we need to talk about ambiguous loss. And what is this ambiguous loss? It is much of what we experienced during the pandemic is ambiguous. We know that lack of closure, and we don't know when the pandemic is going to end. Future is unknown. We are looking for answers, and feelings can be complicated and difficult to identify. And we feel stuck living in a limbo because it's the first time all of us globally, we experience this pandemic together. And when we have this ambiguous loss, it is difficult for us to find answer, to find answer. So this ambiguous loss is being unable to determine whether something is here or gone, living or death, ongoing or over, is what makes a loss ambiguous. And that feeling is what the pandemic has inflicted on most of us. Families separated by travel precaution knew that they would see each other again, but not when. Friends and communities and favorite places were psychologically present. We still consider ourselves part of the community, the neighborhood, the friendship, but physically out of reach. So all this will lead us to ambiguous loss. Yeah. So we talk about grief. Grief is not a linear. It does not start strong and taper off with time. Rather, it is like a storm that grows smaller or larger in the same day and often within hours. So during this talk, I'd like you all of us to reflect death during COVID-19 pandemic. When a loved one dies and we can't be with them, what can we do? How do we create ritual and ceremony to honor the one we have loved and lost? And how do we mourn? So with these three questions, I like all of you to reflect and have your own answer, right? Yeah. So when we talk about grief, how do we navigate loss and grief? What are the key pillars? So here I put down a few points here. First, we need to acknowledge the pain and realize that your grieving journey is unique because all of us are different. So the grieving process is different. And the first thing we have to do is we have to acknowledge the pain of loss, and accept and the process, the emotion, the sadness, the anger, the denial, the fear, the bargaining, And also the most important thing is to have supportive social networks. We know that during this lockdown, there is MCO from 2019 to 2020 to 2021, beginning of the year. We find that the social supportive network is very restricted because we cannot go to visit our friends who just lost their loved ones. So we use a lot of technology to help us to connect each other, and where you can be vulnerable to share your emotions freely to each other. However, that is cannot be compared to the physical presence that we have a pat on your shoulder or a hug, this and that. And the last one is that we need to exercise, to have self-care, and also be compassionate towards ourselves. Sometimes because of our grief, because of our bereavement, we tend to forget about ourselves. Yeah. So because of that, so we need to be compassionate to love ourselves first before we can love others people. And the other thing I like to share with you is about the signs of this complicated grief, because the certain death like this will have signs of complicated grief. So deep wish that you should have died along with your loved ones. Uh, Extreme difficulty in carrying out normal routines like going to work, get the grocery, this and that. And self-isolated from others. These are part of the signs of complicated grief. So extended withdrawal from the social activities or overindulgence with unhealthy activities like drinking, like sleeping, this and that. And also depression, which comes with a sense of helplessness, hopelessness, and also deep sadness. And for some, maybe they have guilt, believe that you could have prevented death, or you did something wrong so that that person passed on, because of the guilt and shame that the person or the bereaved members of the family encounter. Now, I would like to share with you the symptoms of grief in terms of physical, emotional, and behavior. Physical symptoms like sleep disturbances, shortness of breath, tightness in throat, physical distress, and weight change. Emotional symptoms like sadness, anger, guilt, anxiety, and loneliness. And behavioral symptoms like forgetfulness, too much worrying about others, also prolonged withdrawal from normal activities. So these are the symptoms of grief. Yeah. And the next point I'd like to share is, what is prolonged grief? Prolonged grief can be the death of a close person, and persistent and pervasive grief response accompanied by longing for or preoccupation with disease. And there is intense emotional pain like sadness, guilt, anger, denial, blank, loss of sense of self, absence of positive mood, numbness, avoidance of social and other activities. And this prolonged grief, minimum of 6 months after death, exceeding social and cultural and religious norms. And also there are significant impairments in personal, social, familiar, occupational, and other functioning. So these are the called prolonged grief. And my dear friend, we also know that this COVID-19 pandemic also give a public health crisis, because grieving in isolation, somewhat of an oxymoron in many cultures, where mourning is shared and is a social practice. So as we are grieving in isolation, a spike in COVID-19 related prolonged and complicated grief is a potential public health crisis for all of us. Yeah, because when we went through that, it will create potential public crisis in our community. And there's an urgency in the need for timely access in our mental health services. And you find that during these 2 years, from last year to this year, you see a lot of mental health problems come out. And in need of that, a lot of mental health services are being offered to the society. And one of that is in our mental health ministry. We start out of this Shalom Care line, which I'm going to share with you at the end of this talk. Yeah. So we have also had the opportunity to think creatively about bereavement efforts. We have learned from the previous endemic like Ebola in Congo previously. And we know that funerals are being live streamed now. And then all these were using the video conference or Zoom, Google Meet, to allow family to say goodbye to the critically ill loved one and deliver the last rites, using it on Zoom. I remember last year and this year, some of our parishioners passed on, and the family requests that there's an online online service, no, for the deceased one. No? So the family come together, and the only thing they can do is using this technology of connecting to each other. And some of the nurses and doctors in the hospital, they are very, very kind and compassionate. They use their handphone to have video call to talk to the family members, so that at least the family members can see them, the dying, for the last few moments of their life, so that they can have at least a few words to talk to them, and that is very, very touching for all of us. Yeah. Okay, the next one I like to share with you is the grief cycle. No? The grief cycle can start from denial. Just now, before we start, just now I asked Jared, no, when his friend passed on, for him it's a shock, no, a panic, a confusion. How come I just talked to him a few weeks ago, and then this person passed on? It's a shock. Actually, it's a panic, a denial process, no, and then followed by anger, and followed by bargaining. And bargaining is, if only I could do this, if I would, I'll be there earlier, this and that, And then followed by depression, feel despair, no hope, helpless, no loss of perspective, and followed by acceptance of reality. So this one, it takes times, and it's different from individuals, because we grieve differently. Acceptance of reality, acceptance does not mean that one approves or like the situation that is right or fair, and also that then readjustment in the outlook, in priorities, in thoughts, beliefs, attitude, and after that, then slowly gain confidence and start finding meaning, and to move on the life. So all this is called a grief cycle, right? Grief cycle. So for us, we are in the COVID-19 pandemic, and one of the words that we need to use is disenfranchised grief. This disenfranchised grief is a loss that is not openly acknowledged, socially validated, or publicly mourned. In other words, a loss where society itself fails the griever by simply not recognizing the right to grieve. So, in this COVID-19 pandemic, a lot of changes. For example, later on to share with you is the limitations to funerals and burials. And in fact, the family members not being able to say goodbye, to bid farewell to the dying. And what are the recommendations now for us? Now we can discuss about the desire, rituals, or spiritual practices of funerals and memorial. We can recommend to them. We can help families to memorize or remember the deceased in alternative and innovative ways, like collective pictures, expressing feelings through phone calls, letters, WhatsApp, audio messages, like that. And because we cannot meet in the church, only sometimes in the parlor, or sometimes not even in the parlor or the mortuary, and it was taken over by the undertaker to do on behalf of the family. So these religious celebration like weddings, masses, funerals, online memorials, in which family members and friends and others can express their condolences and share thoughts about the loved one. I remember last year when I did one online wait for one family members because of the loved one passed away. So it's very, I feel very sorry that the family member cannot go to the mortuary, because it was all taken under the undertaker to do everything. And after they did everything, they sent to cremation, and the family member cannot even touch, not even being there to accompany the last journey of the deceased. So it's very painful for them, very painful. So me as a priest, because I know this disease very very well. And so the family member approached me, and what I can do is I use a Zoom to connect with the family members and say the prayer and trying to be in there with the family members. I know it's quite difficult, there's no physical presence. Or however, the most I can do is just being there, being there, just offer the prayers and just listen to them. Yeah, allow them to mourn, allow them to weep, allow them to share the feelings, etc. Yeah, yeah. And also, that there's a limitation in visits and end of life care. The family members cannot go to the hospital because of the restrictions. And the family members cannot be there, to take care of the dying, to give support, loss of social support, and they might inflict some of the guilt on the survivor, and there might be some unfinished business because this person, this dying, might not be able to say the few last word with the family members because of the changes due to COVID-19, So for us, we can also assist family in working through the information and decision, of how to help out, And also we as friends and relatives, especially BEC and church organization, we try to be there validating the emotions and gaining awareness of potential salutary coping skills according to the values and beliefs, Yeah, and helping brainstorm creative strategy for maintaining closeness and communication using technology. So we have Zoom, we have Google Meet, and might come together to say the 7 days of prayers, and we have rosary together, say the Divine Mercy chaplet together, this and that. Yeah. So that's all we can do, as a community, right? Because community support is very important, especially for the bereaved family members. Yeah. Yeah. So another one is limitation in access to social support. Last time, before the lockdown pandemic, COVID-19 pandemic, when our friends, relatives pass away, we can be there together, physically present to support them. However, now we cannot. There's a limitation in access to support system, in social support system. So there's a loss of social and physical connection and support. We know that last time we can hug them, we can put our shoulder and being there, allow the bereaved families to share the emotions publicly, and that is a healthy way of mourning and grieving. Yeah. So because of that, then what can we do? Now we can assist a family in assessing social support network practices. Maybe can put out the memorial plans, help them. Help in assessing resources to help them plan for practical needs after the death. Provide access to additional grief support. The grief support system need to be there to share very, very confidentially, and hence also important of self-care. Sometimes because of the lockdown, sometimes the bereaved family members will forget about their own self-care. Don't want to sleep, don't want to eat, all this part of parcel of the mourning. Yeah. And also because of that changes in due to COVID-19, there are some negative social perceptions. I remember one of my friends who got this COVID-19 virus, and then he was sent by the MOH to the Southern Hospital, and the moment they brought accompany her down, the neighborhood they put stigma on her. They even bang the car, say that why you bring this virus back to the condominium, this and that. So this stigma feelings that the loss is not acknowledged by the society, so the society is not prepared for that, because of the the stigma of this COVID-19. There's no more empathy. There's no more support of the feeling instead of the family members. Yeah, especially the community. If you stay in the residence area in the condominium, it's very difficult, because our people still not yet ready to help one another, and that will have a lot of impact. So what can we recommend? So normally when we go to visit them, or also for the past 2 years we cannot do that physically. Only recently we can allow to go for like a limited of number of people present in the parlor, funeral parlor, this and that. So we can be in there, that just silence, and just allow them to share whatever they want to share. During this grief and loss, now when we visit our friends and relatives, we don't have to say a lot of words. We just being there, allow them to pour out, so that they when we allow them to pour everything, they can share very freely to us. Yeah, all right. Okay. So another one is the depletion of emotional and coping resources. Yeah, due to the COVID-19, because there's no social and contact, lack of emotional sadness condition, because we also have the worried that how we're going to visit them in the family, in the families, in the funeral parlor, this and that. So we also feel worried about that. So for us, what we can do is we give psychoeducation on the risk factors and warning sign of common mental health disorder like anxiety and depression. We also encourage the people to ask for professional help, so that they can access to some psychological intervention and support service and social support as well. Also, we promote the strategy of self-care and meaningful future plans to discuss with them, etc. Yeah, right. So, so this we need to understand as a community, as a individual. We need to know this one, right? So as I prepare for this talk, I went to do a lot of study journals and researches, and I found that in the morning in the lockdown, absence of waste is something that we need to understand also. No? Waste were a way of mitigating the grief of family members and a route to do justice to the departed, because we can recall their lives, their doings, and their talents. And mourning actually is a time that we can say goodbye, a good, a proper farewell to the deceased. For us, it's our own health well-being actually. Yeah. So I understand that during the COVID-19 pandemic, we will see a lot of this picture. In the cemeteries, the tragedy of burials without the family. Right? As I look into these journals and study on this one, we see that at the look at the data, make it possible to see that it was as if this pandemic killed 2 times over. Seeing it first isolate victims from their family just before dying, then it does not allow anybody to achieve emotional closure. So it strips the death of the dignity and also aggravates the grief of the living. So it kills 2 times. So in the MCO in our country, do not permit the holding of funerals, which would normally set a term to grieving. So in such circumstances, the undertakers have found themselves acting as replacement for families, for friends, even for priests, because like I remember during the earlier stage of the COVID-19 pandemic lockdown in Malaysia, even priests cannot go to the mortuary, cannot go to the cremation place, to say the prayer. All are do it in the distance or using the social media only. Yeah. So that also quite difficult. The family members are not there during the burials. You can see them in the distance. When the hearse pass by, the family member cannot accompany. Cannot accompany uh, the procession. Yeah. So more than this, the close family of the victims dying of the virus are frequently in quarantine. For example, in the family, uh, in quarantine, how to go into bid farewell to the death, cannot, to the disease, cannot, So it's very, very painful for the bereaved family members. Yeah. So the result is that at least once a day there tends to be a burial without even one single person turning up to bid farewell. Either because the relatives have also been admitted to hospital because they are quarantined, or they are not allowed to go because of the restriction of the NCO. Yeah. So all these were done by the undertakers. So it's very difficult for the bereaved family members to go through it. Yeah. It's very difficult for them. It's very, very sad also. Yeah. So the way in which each culture promotes the task of grieving, the expressing or suppressing of the feelings of the mourner, and social support are factors considered vital in respect of the impact on the health or sickness of the members of any given culture. So emotion and social support are very important after the death of somebody who are close. Yeah, very important. Because according to this Rosenblatt, he said that mourning emotions are considered universal and manifest themselves as rage, powerlessness, guilt, grief, tears, something natural in giving feelings bodily outlet. So it is important. However, during this COVID-19 pandemic, a lot of this cannot be done. Yeah. So So we can also see that a lot of video calls to word of loneliness. Yeah. So because of this COVID-19 pandemic happening as it has a context dominated by mass communication via this internet, social networking, is markedly different from the pandemics that occur at early points in history. So we are living one's grief in cyberspace, seems to permit a return to the shared experiences of pre-industrial times. So this gradually disappeared as there were outbreak of epidemics in the 19th century, which required numerous scheduled funerals and finally led to a provision of burials in churches. So you see, all this will create mental health issue later on. Yeah. So like in obituary notices published in various printed media or on web pages of funeral undertakers, rather than the address of the mourner, a WhatsApp number or an email address are given for senders of messages of condolence. I remember during this web service, we are all the friends related are told to put these messages of condolence in the website, create a page so that we can say our condolences, our messages to the bereaved family. Yeah. So all these are things very, very, very common during this COVID-19 pandemic. Yeah. So we have online weddings and funerals, and it become a new normality, become a new normality. Online weddings have carved out a place in the new normality, despite rejection by some funeral directors. Yeah. So this type of online weddings and funerals encourages new form of mourning, allowing emotions to be expressed on a profile created by and belonging to the person now deceased, rather than setting up new representations of this personality. Yeah. So because of the restrictions. Not like in uh, pre-pandemic. Pre-pandemic, we can go to the funeral parlors, we can go to the homes of the family, to be in there, to give support. During the COVID-19, all this being restricted already. Yeah. Okay. Another one is the funeral rituals. So we know that throughout human history, funeral rituals have served as essential milestone in the process of elaborating and re-signifying the death of a loved one. So the acute grieving process triggered by a loss is important for any psychological health. Why? Because it is an opportunity to elaborate on the finite nature of others and oneself. Yeah. So from the moment in which family members are prevented from performing farewell rituals due to restrictions imposed by the pandemic, the mourning may become even more painful and become even incomplete, because it may trigger psychological distress that tends to go on indefinitely, providing raw material for the development of complicated grief. So that's what happened. So a lot of people are breakdowns in mental health. So the final rites, therefore, in addition to the brutal loss of loved one, people experience the impossibility to celebrate final rites that give the opportunity of communion, complicity, connection with the sacred, and start a necessary process of detachment. So that's why in our Catholic Church, the funeral mass, funeral service are so important. So important, not only for the deceased, but also for the bereaved family members. Yeah. So I remember when I prepared for this talk along with the South District clergy and Father Edwin Peter proposed that we give this talk, grief and loss in the pandemic, on at the end of October, so that we prepare for next Monday, the Also Day. Yeah. So the Also Day is also a day that in the Catholic traditions that we honor the deceased, to pray for all souls. So for the past 2 years, we are not allowed. Like last year, we're not allowed to go to the cemetery, because there was the restriction. This year, at least we have Mass Cathedral. We can open up the church cemetery. Then the bereaved family members can come and at least pray before the deceased, the tomb in the graveyard, so that they can put flowers, put candles. This is also a very good gesture for the Catholics. Yeah. So paying the last tribute to a loved one is a mental health gesture that allows individual to make amends and reconcile with life. And so in the exceptional regime determined by the pandemic, however, funerals were abolished and necessary limitations were imposed on barriers. And this will create disturbances rather than comforting. So I hope and I pray that in this 2nd of November, that will be next Tuesday, when we go to our cemetery of our loved ones, so we can pay our respect and we can say our prayers there, and also spend time, a bit of time there. Of course, yes, I don't know the SOP at the moment, how we're going to carry out this. However, it's good that we do that. Yeah. When I prepare for this talk, I came across this expert in grief by the name of David Glaser. David Glaser was with Elizabeth Kubler-Ross when she wrote the 5 stages of grief. So in the in the stages of grief, David put the 6 stages: finding meaning in loss. Yeah, finding meaning in loss. So you can go to the Amazon.com or book depository to get this book. It's in it's in the Amazon or book depository. So this the 6th stage of grief is finding meaning in loss. Look for a closure after a loss. But the process of finding meaning and a clear direction out of their pain can transform therapy into a deeper, more hopeful experience. So we need to find meaning. It takes times, however. Just now I show you the grief cycle. The last end, the 6th stage of grief is finding meaning. So many people look for closure after a loss, but the process of finding meaning and a clear direction out of their pain can transform therapy into a deeper, more hopeful experience. So normally, counselors and psychotherapists help their clients shift from simply exploring pain to experiencing healing and even post-traumatic growth. So learn new ways to relate to the suffering and move on in a way that honors the loved one that we have lost. So how do we do that? We can identify strategies to address guilt, shame, or even stigmas, stigma in special circumstances, right? Like especially in these pandemic losses. Yeah. And also we explore more powerful techniques for using grounded positive psychology to help witnesses versus fixing grief, according to David Glaser, who is an expert on healing after loss. So, so I would like to encourage our viewers to what to call, to go and search for this book, right? So when we talk about the process of adapting to loss, it takes times to adapt to all the changes that happen when someone close dies. It takes times. People cope differently with loss, and the time to adapt depends on our relationship with the disease, how central they are in our life. The more closer we are with this disease, the more attached we are. So it takes time for us to all these changes happen when someone close to us die. Yeah. For example, for couples who lost a partner, adapting to the loss entails not only the emotional and mental work of coming to terms with the death, but also with the practical work of finding solution to everyday tasks, such as taking out the stress and grocery shopping. So adapting is also affected by rebuilding ongoing relationship and returning to social participation in community. Yeah. So even our close one pass on, so we can still connect them. How do you connect them? By giving meaning, by finding meaning of the loss in our life, and we continue to move on, returning to the social participation in the community, in our family, in our church, in our workplace. So the presence of close friends, loved ones, and family members is important in helping bereaved people through this process. So yet the necessity of physical distancing due to COVID-19 can make this difficult. Yeah. For example, remember before interstate allowed, a lot of the bereaved family from other state cannot come, even for the for the funeral, unless you got a permit. No? So all this will take times. Yeah? So another expert by the name of Wooden's 4 tasks of mourning you can see here is number 1, to accept the reality of the loss and the process of the pain of the grief. And the 3rd stage is to adjust to a world without the disease This is task number 3. And then task number 4, to find an enduring connection with the disease while embarking on a new life. So there are 4 tasks of mourning here. Yeah. So as I said just now, Kubler-Ross grief cycle, there are first 5, denial, anger, depression, bargaining, acceptance, and then at the end, David Glaser put down the finding meaning in loss. So with these 5 stages of grief and loss, all these are very complex. It's not linear progression. You can might experience denial and shock. Then you maybe go straight to the depression, or may go straight to bargaining. And bargaining, you might go back to acceptance if you are fast enough. If not, they will go back, bound back to anger, and bound back to depression bound back to denial and shock. Unless when we come to the stage of acceptance, and we find meaning, and we can move on in our new journey. Yeah. So I give you one example how moving through the stages of grief. So during the pandemic, the stages might look like this. Okay, number 1, denial. This virus would affect me or my community. Yeah. Anger. How dare you take away my freedom and tell me to stay at home? It might be somebody doing or don't want to put mask. They get angry. Then my bargaining. If I stay home for 4 weeks, I can then go back to normal. We know that from 2020 to 2021, we don't know the time limits when we can go back to normal. We went through all this. And depression, there's no end in sight. I'm so ready for this to be over. And then number 5, acceptance. I will do my part to stay safe. I will keep my distance, wash my hands, and support the people who are caring for the sick and providing essential services. And the last one, finding meaning. I spend more time playing with my kids. I no longer feel like being race. I'm reflecting on my life at a deeper level. So you see, moving through the stages of grief from denial up to the finding meaning, it takes time for us to do that. Yeah. Okay. So I want to quote with you one of the important slogan given by David Glaser. So he said, meaning is a reflection of the love we have for those we have lost. Meaning is the 6th stage where the healing often resides. Yeah. Okay. So far so good, Grace.
Yes, Father, you're fine.
Yeah. All right. Let's continue. So according to David Glaser, we need 6 elements in grief. Number 1 is surround yourself with community. That's why the community is so important. So we need all types of support. Those who can go deep with us, those that can distract us or listen to us. Yeah, the community are very important. That's why in the church, the BEC were the first one who informed. However, in the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, a lot of our bereaved family members, they don't tell anybody. They shut down the doors, and don't allow people to come and help, and just keep it secret, So that would not help in grief, So we are not living in isolation. We are living in a community, in the families, in our church BECs and that, So to continue the connections with the loved one who has died, So it has been said, grief is love that has no place to go. Love doesn't have to stop. Love does not have to stop. You can still pray for that person. You can say rosary. You can light up candles in your home for your beloved deceased. So do rituals that connect you to your loved one, like things you like to do together. Share memories of them with others. It's also helping you also, right? So grief does not define you. Remember to honor grief, but don't lose yourself in it. It is not who you are. So you don't have to use the term like I'm a widow, I'm a widower. Yeah, like a key in a bunch of key metaphor. If you lost one key, there's other key there. So remember your loved one with more love than pain, but with your own pace, right? Like don't like Queen Victoria, she mourned for 40 years of her husband. Yeah. So treat yourself as best friend. Grief is on the inside. Mourning is what you do on the outside. So don't rush yourself. Hang over your guilt and self-blame. Be kind to yourself. One way is to directly ask, for example, let others know when and birthdays of anniversary are coming up and ask for the support. For the bereaved family, the most difficult part that they can encounter to face the bereavement is when the next anniversary, the next birthday of the deceased, or the next holiday day when they spend time together, or when they pass through a certain shock that they have been together, spend a quality time together. When they pass through that one, the memory will still trigger out a lot of the past memory, and that will also inflicted on them, right? So later on, I will give some tips how to face the holidays, anniversaries, all this. Yeah. All right. Okay. Don't compare. Don't compare. Comparison is tough in grief. If you win the comparison, you still lose. When someone thinks of your grief, it's none of your business. Yeah. Be gentle and true to yourself. Honor your pace, because all of us are different. We are unique in the process of grieving. Yeah. And count your wins. This is what growth happens. Count all wins, even little ones, like walking to take a shower, going to work, arranging the deceased documents and person belongings, etc. So all these 6 elements that you need in grief is actually taken from this expert David Kleiser. Yeah, David Kleiser. So another huge model of managing grief and loss is number 1, honor the loss, express the emotion, acknowledge obstacles, and live life, live normal life. Yeah, yeah. And of course, 6 ways to cope with grief and loss. Number 1, stay in the present. Stay here and now, present. Okay, connect with others. Create memories, very important. Create memories. Later I'm going to show you how we can create a memory box. You can put the belongings of the loved ones that have left there behind. How do we keep this one? And develop new rituals. Acknowledge your feelings. Ask for help when needed. Yeah. So if you have prolonged grief disorder, unending grief, yawning, trouble reinvesting in life, loss of meaning or purpose, prolonged difficulty with acceptance of the reality, then this means you are in the prolonged grief disorder already. And it will lead to a depression. It's getting worse, cannot sleep, loss of functionality, also heavy suicidal thoughts, and that. All this will encourage you to go and seek for professional help. Yeah. While I preparing for this talk for this morning, I think about what the best thing to say to someone in grief, because we encounter our friends, relatives, or colleagues now when they are in the grieving process. How we talk to them, how do we say our words? I think that is important. I want to give some tips to all of us here. Number 1, can say, I'm sorry for your loss. I wish I had the right words. Just now I care. I don't know how you feel, but I'm here to help in any way I can. You and your loved one will be in my thoughts and my prayer. Okay. If you know this person very well, say, my favorite memory of your loved one is I'm always just a phone call away. If you need help to share your feelings, to share your grieving, I'm here with. You can call me anytime, or give a heart instead of saying something. Of course, in this COVID-19 pandemic, we still have to practice the SOP. You know? Yeah, we all need help at times like this. I'm here for you. I'm usually up early or late. If you need anything, just let me know. Say nothing, just be with that person. If you don't know how to say, just being there, being present is more than enough. You know, I remember there's one psychiatrist was sharing that um, he received his clients came to talk to him while his wife passed on. So that husband just kept on saying. The other day, after saying 1.5 hours, and then he said thank you to the psychiatrist because he poured out everything. You know, just being there and accept, just being there, just acknowledge. That's all. Yeah. And one of the worst things to say to someone in grief, that sometimes we might make mistake. You know, uh, things like at least we live a long life. Many people die young. So don't say this one. Or he's a better place in heaven. She brought this on herself. And there's a reason for everything. You know? This is not correct to say. You know? Aren't you over him yet? He has been dead for a while now. So if you say like that, then it's not empathy enough. You know? You can have another child still, especially for a young mother who just lost the child in miscarriage. You know? She was such a good person. God want her to be with him. Don't say this. Right? Don't say this. It's very, very hurting. I know how you feel. Actually, we don't know how the person really feel. You know, because especially during the grieving period, you know, when a person just suddenly lost his love or her loved ones. The feelings, the emotion are very complex. It's not easy for us to say, I know how you feel. You know, I went through all this before. You know? We are all different. You know? We are all different. How did she came here to do, and it was her time to go. And the last one, I always hear people say, be strong, and not be strong. You know? My condolences, be strong. How to be strong? We cannot say that, right? Also, another one is things not to say to someone who is grieving. No? They led a full life, they're in a better place, etc. No? So don't say this. All right. So another one I want to share with you is grief and holidays. No? How do we deal with pain? Because as I said just now in the a few slides before, that when the holidays comes, no, we will trigger a lot, no, because ways to externalize the loss, give it a time and a place. You may during this like birthday or anniversaries, you say a prayer or about your loved one, or light a candle for your loved ones, create online tribute for them, share a favorite story about the loved ones, or can offer masses, can check online about them with your relatives and friends. So this one you can actually do it. And the memory box, is a place to store treasure that keepsakes. It contains a selection of unique items that belong to a loved ones, and that can be kept safe in a location ideal for easy viewing. It can be created by anyone who wants to remember a loved one who has died, or by someone who wants to be remembered. Right. So a memory box can be made for something as simple as a cardboard like what we have here, showing the picture here. And it can be personalized by decorating with pen, fabric, or markers. And you can attach a photo of your loved one or on the lid. Yeah. So actually, it's very good for you to keep if you like people write some what to call the condolence messages. You can keep it there also for you to. It's a remember your loved ones lah. Yeah. So all photos of a loved one that was taken as a special events like holidays, graduations, wedding, all these can put it there. Yeah. Right. And then I want to share with you what are the ways you can do in the grief process. According to the journals, journaling for healing. Grief journaling is one way of allowing ourselves the space for genuine feeling, genuine healing to take place, whether we are ready or not, willing to express ourselves to others or not. So you can write it down there. So here I give some journaling tips. Uh, so this one therapist said, Natalie Gobert offers these tips in writing down the bonds, feeling the writer within. So you keep your hands writing, do not close out. That is editing as you write. Do not worry about spelling or punctuation or grammar. Do not about lose control. Do not think or be logical. Dive into the tough stuff. Just keep on writing and keeping simple and be compassionate and gentle with yourself. So that will help you to express out your feelings and emotions that within you, that have been kept within you. So we may start like today, I'm really missing. Okay. The hardest time of the day is I have been feeling a lot of, okay. I feel most connected to my loved one when, so you can write down all this. Yeah. I can honor my loved one by, so you write it down in your journaling. Okay. So all these are very, very healing. Actually, it's a process. So apart from writing, you can also using visual grief journaling. So one thing about today in our digital world, we don't take photograph. Everything is digital, but previously without the digital camera, we used to develop a lot of photos. Maybe we can put all the photos together and put in an album, and it's also part of your creative journaling by sharing your story, your life with that deceased, the loved one. Scrapbooks journaling, or write a love letter to your loved one, or write a love letter to yourself. Yeah. So as this unknown author said, you must remember that grief story matters. What you journal has a power to change your perspective, restore your sense of being, or find ways to remember your loved ones. Yeah. So journaling actually is very, very healing. Actually, I encourage all of our bereaved family members to do that. Yeah. So my dear friends, as I prepare for this webinar this morning, I also come across that some children lost both the parents, and most of the time we talk about how to help the adults in dealing with the grief and loss. How about the children? The children is not like us. They can verbally express the feeling, the sadness. They don't know. So how shall we do that for our children? So I'm going to share with 2 slides with all of you. So journaling also can do, or another one to support is called grounding techniques to support grieving children. So we call it big feelings, referring to grieving children's struggles with emotional regulation and extended tantrum, uncontrolling crying, fit of anger, or bout of anxiety. So grounding techniques are the mindfulness strategy that support children in regulating these big feelings. So how are the 5 grounding techniques that we can use? So we engage the senses. Engage senses. Bring your attention to the space you are in and share with me 5 things you can see, 4 things you can hear, 3 things you can touch, and 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. Yeah. And another one, like you can ask the children to draw a big tree, or the tree connect to heaven and the root down to earth, so that they feel being connected. Yeah, that also can be done also to support grieving children, because a lot of our parents pass on and then left with the children that are still young, and they were taken by their other aunties or uncles or other guardians. So we need also to give them some tips how to support the grieving children. Okay, and the last slide, because the next Tuesday is also days, and also days now we will allowed to go to the cemetery to believe to say prayers to our loved ones who have passed on. So I like to use this opportunity for those who are viewing maybe later on. Can share, can say this prayer together. So I like to invite Chris to be the respondent. I say the prayer. All right. Okay, Chris, Stella.
Yeah.
Okay. So eternal rays give to them, O Lord.
And let perpetual light shine upon them.
May they rest in peace.
Amen.
Another prayer that I want to lead, and then Christella, you help me to respond also on behalf of all our viewers out there. Huh? So, loving, ever living, compassionate God, we understand that the pain of loss, the headache of bereavement,
may we hold in our hearts all those whose families or friends have died.
You are a light that shines in the darkness times.
Guide us and heal us in our sickness and sorrow.
You comfort us in times of fear.
May we comfort each other even as we keep apart.
You console and lead us in times of doubts and confusion.
May we follow the light of your love and spread love.
You move our hearts to act generosity.
May we be led to share what we have with those in need.
God of life, we thank you for the signs of your light in the midst of our darkness.
May we be signs of your compassion in the heart of your world.
Okay, thank you, Christella. So now I'm going to share with all of you the Shalom Care Line. It is a emotional support telephony platform that Art as a Mental Health Ministry initiated with the collaboration with the Good Shepherd Counseling Ministry of Penang Diocese, and also the Malacca Johor Counseling Ministry of Malacca Johor Diocese. We come together to offer up this emotional support in the telephony platform that people can call us. And our Shalom Care Line number is 03 2723 7272, right? Actually, the number is quite easy to remember. 2723 7272, right? So our operating hours every day is 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. Yeah, it's free and confidential. Yeah, we are giving 4 languages: English, Mandarin, Tamil, and Bahasa. Yeah, the number is the same. Volunteers are ready. So anybody who need to have and need somebody to listen to you, you can pour out your emotional distress and everything by calling this Shalom Care Line 2723 7272 with these 2 operating hours, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m., 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. And our volunteers are trained. They were there for all of us. For all of us. Yeah. Yeah. So another one is our mental health ministry. Afterward, I will stop sharing, and after the Q&A sessions, then Crystal will help us to project it out, and Crystal will help us to announce this one. Yeah. So thank you for your attentive listening. Yeah. So I stop sharing now. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Father. It was a very appropriate talk during this time of the COVID-19 pandemic. So it's definitely a great help for those who are in bereavement and be able to cope with the loss.
Yeah.
And thank you for the talk to also help us to understand what people are going through during this time of loss and grief.
Welcome.
Thank you very much. So I'd like to share with you about the e-counseling and psychological consultations that the Life Journey Wellness Center provides. So if anyone out there would like to have some counseling sessions, please go ahead and contact the Life Journey Wellness Center under the Archdiocesan Mental Health Ministry. All right. So let's move on to upcoming talks for the month of November. Next slide, please. Okay, we have a talk by Gerard Ko on the 6th of November, Integrating Spirituality with Psychotherapy. It will be held at 10 a.m. on the 6th of November on a Saturday. So Gerard Ko has actually given a series of talks under the Archdiocesan Mental Health Ministry this year, and this is his upcoming talk on the 6th of November. And there's another one also by Gerard Ko, Taming the Monkey Mind, and that will be held on the 27th of November. So the topic itself sounds very interesting, Taming the Monkey Mind. So stay tuned to these talks, and we hope that you will join us for these talks.
You can actually scan the QR code or go to our Facebook, our Facebook, Archdiocesan Mental Health Ministry, and you can like it, and all information are all there. Yeah.
Thank you, Father. All right. So thank you, everyone, and have a lovely and blessed day.
Any questions from the YouTube? Is there anybody want to get any feedback? Any thoughts you want to add on? Maybe I have not included in this talk. You can share what is your insight after you listen to this talk.
At the moment, we do not have any questions in the chat so far.
All right.
But would anyone like to ask any questions? The floor is open.
Okay, no questions.
Okay.
All right.
All right,
Thank you very much, Jessica.
So, okay, then, Father, shall we end the talk then? Yeah.
Sure.
All
So,
right.
I'll just give a blessing before we end the talk. Yeah. The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
May God bless you all and bless all our families and our viewers in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit.
Okay.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Thank you, everyone, and God bless you all.
Okay. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Have a blessed day.
God bless.